how much in the Jewish culture he had celebration. I mean, you know how many feasts
real.
there are?
They ate. And they go hard.
Dude.
They party.
Weeks at a time.
Weeks at a time, days at a time. The preparation to celebration is a big thing on God's heart. And again, I love doing this in context of like, if God is doing it, how much more should I probably lean into this? You know, if God, it loves to have feast and talks about joy and being filled, like being merry, being like drink and eat and all of these things. It's like, how much more should we be implementing it in our day-to-day lives as we're being creative, as we're walking with people, because he is the God of celebration. And I think there's something in that.
Welcome to the AXL Podcast. AXL Creative Co. exists to equip and empower sons and daughters to advance the kingdom of heaven through their creative expressions. On this season of the podcast, we'll be discussing our values. So we've gathered leaders from our community to share what they're experiencing through applying these values in their everyday life. Let's jump in.
Welcome to the AXL Podcast. Let's go around the room and introduce ourselves. I'll start. My name is Angela.
My name is Brendan.
My name is Vanessa.
My name is Jasmine.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to start talking about the value of celebration. I want to read the description to start what celebration is. The axiom is put it on the board. So when we say celebration, we say put it on the board, right? Because you want to see the win.
Yeah,
you want to see
this.
You want to put it on the board, right?
What board?
Yeah.
The invisible whiteboard that always follows you everywhere you go. Yeah.
Great.
Look at my list of my list of wins right here. Okay, when we say celebration, we say if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Right, y'all? You're doing it wrong. Okay.
It's right. That's true.
So if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. We make time to celebrate the little wins that create a big victory. So this is something that we practice as a community. We really emphasize celebration. And I just want to ask you guys, since you guys have been a part of this community, how has your life been transformed, or what have you recognized has changed in your life by just being intentional about practicing the value of celebration?
I'll go. For me, celebration has always been something that internally I thought that I had to reject because of fear of pride, false humility, whatever you want to label it. And so living in a culture that embraces what celebration does, I would say like the main thing that it helped me recognize was that like I have a seat at the table, hey, you have something that we don't have, and we want to celebrate what it is that you carry.
Yeah.
Instead of it being like this puff me up, or whether you're asking for it or giving it, that it's a recognition of we all have a room to be in the room together,
Yeah.
And so I think for me, that was like the light bulb moment, was that, okay, no one's trying to get me to feel a certain way. They just see something in me that either I may or may not see. And so it takes maturity, and it takes vulnerability sometimes to receive it and to give it.
Yeah.
But for me, it's really just allowed me to recognize that, like, okay, I have something to give. And that, I think, is a powerful thought, that that you have something special. So I would say that for me, that's been a lot of the journey.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I feel that with celebration specifically, I've had to get my eyes off myself so I would steward celebration. Oftentimes, and I think back to, I was thinking about it this morning, that in college I had this psychology class, and they're talking about the symptoms of depression and all these different mental disorders. And in talking about those, one of the things with depression is that your eyes are always on yourself. And so when your eyes are always on yourself, it's literally the opposite of joy, and you're stewarding demonic spirits, you're stewarding, and you're letting demonic spirits minister to you. And one thing I've had to learn with celebration is oftentimes I would think that I wouldn't steward it, because even in myself, when someone would celebrate me, similar to what you said, Brendan, when I wouldn't accept praise, it was because I had pride in me. And because I was accepting this view of myself over what the Lord had said over me.
Yeah.
And the Lord gave me revelation on that, told me that it was unsubmitted vision, that my vision of myself wasn't actually submitted to the Lord. And so I wasn't letting him have full lordship of my life and how I viewed myself. I was actually, that's reminding me, I had this conversation this morning with someone actually about celebration. And he was talking about how he has a hard time, similar to what we were saying, accepting praise and accepting people's praise of us. And I immediately got reminded of Jesus and how whenever he was first baptized and came back up and then the dove descended, that the Lord said, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." The Father wouldn't have said that if Jesus didn't need to hear it. And that was a celebration of Jesus and a praise of Jesus and an affirmation of what Jesus was called to. And in this conversation with him, I felt the Lord saying, go back to, in your daily encounter, ask the Lord, have I been delivered from this? Have I been delivered from pride? And if I have been, why don't I believe it? Why am I carrying this like badge of false humility into how I steward celebration when people would honor me, when people would celebrate me or say, oh, you did this thing so well.
Yeah.
It's like this cultural thing where like, oh, I'm going to push it away. But
where do we learn?
But then at the same time, we push it away.
It's all him.
But then we'll like take it back and say, oh, that felt so good getting that praise from someone. But then we almost put up a front and didn't actually accept the praise that someone was giving.
Yeah.
It's wild.
We like go from one end to the other. It's like we either receive the celebration and we just get puffed up and we're like, oh, I'm worthy of celebration. Or we're like, no celebration. It's God,
you know. It's all him.
I mean, especially when I'm like, please don't say anything about me. Just give it to God. You know, but it's so funny that even we do that when God is a God of celebration. Like even that moment that you just said about Jesus, of like the Lord like understood that there was value in celebration. You know what I mean? And he said he just took a moment after Jesus being baptized to celebrate his son. You know, like if he, God of heavens on his throne, was just open up the heavens just to say, well done. Oh my gosh, then how much more like should we hold this value to such a high standard, because he is a God of celebration. So
it also just reminds me of just the statement that you were just making about God being a God who values celebration. I think it's very important that we remember to go to him for celebration.
So good.
I'm reminded of the story of the Prodigal Son. That's usually what we call it, that story. And it's, this son that demands his inheritance prematurely, runs away, squanders it all, comes back, and this is like a super summarized version of the story. But comes back, and the father celebrates him.
Wow.
And the older brother, it says that the older brother was in a field, working, and the father went and told him, hey, your brother's here, we're celebrating, we got a party going on, it was a whole celebration moment going on. And the older brother had a hard time celebrating the younger brother.
Wow.
And as I process the story and just look at it, it feels like what's happening is the older brother kind of is going off on the dad a little bit, like, well, you never celebrate me. He literally is like, I've been doing all this.
Wow.
He's like,
I never left.
He's like, I've been here this whole time. I've been working in these fields. And the dad's like, he's like, well, you got access to the fridge. Well, you live here,
Yes.
And I'm just bringing that up to say, I think a lot of us can be like that elder brother who struggled to celebrate other people because we've actually been longing for celebration ourselves. It actually revealed that the older brother had not received something that he'd been expecting. And so I think we operate like that a lot as creatives.
Yes.
We want to celebrate people, but in all honesty, we're thinking about all the times that we didn't get celebrated. Every time we kicked butt and nobody said anything. And the truth is, sometimes we're not going to get the celebration that we think we deserve from people. But we should be receiving it from the Father, so that there's not this gap in us, this void in us that actually keeps us from giving it away to other people. Because the truth is, you can't give it away if you haven't received it. And so we have to receive that celebration from the Father. We have to be in a place in our daily encounters where we're spending time with the Lord, where we're saying, what do you think about this? And giving God an opportunity to say, hey, you really did a good job. I was so pleased by you when you did that. Like, we need that so we can give it away to other people.
So good. He is the God of celebration, and like when you ask in your daily encounter, what do you think of me? Like it talks about how his thoughts about us are as many as this, like they're good, like the sand. Like he has so many good thoughts about me, and if we can just say, God, what do you think about me? I mean, I can imagine, and like there has just been so many times that I have lacked in needing, or I've lacked in getting celebrated, but like I can imagine so many people go through that and not even recognizing that that's what they need,
right?
You know, so it's like, how much more should we go to the Father and just say, what do you think about me? You know, he's obviously, like, we talk about all of our values. He's going to downshift, communicate, give us feedback, all of this. But sometimes we don't give him space to celebrate us, or we don't even believe like we're worthy of this celebration. You know, even going back to that story of the prodigal son, I'm like, man, what would have happened if he just inquired of that father, like, what do you think of me? And then, can I get your heart for even why we're celebrating our little, maybe I just don't have the heart for it yet, but you obviously have something that
you might be seeing something I don't see.
I'm not seeing because I'm blinded, you know? So I love that, and I love that God has so many thoughts towards us that are good, so much so that he gave his son for us. Like, he loves us, so how much more does he want to celebrate us in our day-to-day lives? How have you guys seen the lack of celebration, specifically in creative spaces or in your day-to-day life? Have you seen, like, what consequences have you seen that play effect in your life or in the people's lives around you? Can you just describe some of those moments of what it looks like when we're withholding celebration from specific areas? You smiling over there. What's up?
Sorry. I don't have a lot of control over my face right now. Anyways, that's another topic. But I'm smiling because I'm thinking of moments and examples. There's a lot of things came to mind. We're just kind of letting in while you're asking that question. Because we're all, all of us are around creatives all the time. We work with creatives. We are creatives. And I think a thing that comes up a lot, and I think you might have mentioned it briefly, Brendan, is pride. And I think I authentically believe one of the reasons that pride thrives in people, in creatives, is because of the lack of authentic celebration from brothers and sisters. I authentically believe that. That if we could get celebration, if we could see each other and acknowledge when other people are kicking butt and doing a good job, it leaves way less space for pride to live in us. Because really what pride is a reach for our own celebration. It's our own grabbing at celebration and grabbing at honor for ourselves. That's all we're trying to get. And pride, you just got to figure it out on your own. It's like an orphan trying to fight to get something that wasn't given to them, and so when it's given to you, pride doesn't really have to live when you know that your brothers and sisters see you and celebrate you and believe in you, But I think that's a symptom. In a community, in a place where there's not a lot of celebration, you'll see a lot more pride coming up. And it's loud and it's ugly.
That's good.
I think some of the things that I've seen consistently just in life, like I've realized that, like looking back in people in my life that are really good at celebrating carry the most hope. Like they're just really good at being hopeful people. And so like I know there's consistent people that I go to in seasons, right? So like entering fatherhood, newly married, whatever the season is, there's people that like, hey, I need advice, I need help, because you know that there's a celebration and a hope that's carried by them. And I think that what I've seen in creative spaces a lot is that there's hopelessness because there's no celebration, and there's no celebration because there's hopelessness. And so like it kind of feeds each other, and the authenticity is needed. Like it has to be authentic. It can't be like, hey, you did a great job. You know, like there needs to be this heartfelt, because it's an invitation. It's a, you know, like I see something in you, and it's an invitation for others to see things in you. But if there's no open doorway for that conversation to happen, it's just shut off. It's just, it can feel stagnant. And I've found just in my own creative spaces that the more I celebrate others and the more that there's that conversation, the more opportunity for collaboration, for this conversation to be creative together, because now there's like this common, okay, we celebrate each other, you know, and it's just healthy.
Yeah. I think even celebration like helps to build trust. You know what I mean? Like authentic celebration. It's like, okay, I see that you see me, and I want to recognize that you are also seen by like celebrating. But I also trust you in those moments, because I find when I don't trust people, it's really hard to collaborate with them. You know?
For sure.
And even if it's not like I don't trust you with my information, it's not like that. It's just like, are you going to judge me if I hit a note wrong and it's just real? You know what I mean? Like it's just this trust. And I think like celebration helps dismantle any of those like lies, or those like we're competing, or they're watching everything, and if I mess up on this one thing, they're gonna go back and just remember, you know what I mean? But I feel like celebration is one of those things in creative communities and communities at large, is that breeds trust and like helps to like bridge those gaps of like, I don't know what you actually think about me, you know, like, oh, okay, I know that you're like, celebration is like, I know that you're rooting for me. I know that you're seeing me. And like, when you breed celebration, it breeds celebration. And it breeds that collaboration even too. So I love that that you even said like celebration helps to collaborate. It helps to build that hope, that like, and build trust. So it's beautiful.
Can I piggyback off of that?
Yeah, piggyback.
Like what you were just saying about how celebration I forget how you said it. How it builds trust. I forget how you said it. But whatever you were just saying made me think of this as well. I'm just like how when someone, or I guess another symptom, or maybe another way of saying it, when celebration is in a place, or a result of celebration being somewhere, whatever, is also creativity. Because it's like, there's something about, like, I think about, I'm just going to say it, like CCM music. This is not a shot at CCM music. It's a shot at some of the CCM music. But like there is a lack. I think part of the reason people have a hard time with CCM, a lot of CCM music, is because there's a lack of creativity. It all sounds the same, and it's all sounded the same for a long time. And I think, to me, there's a lack of creativity. There's a lack of new things happening. And it's like when you're in a room with somebody, we were working on a song a couple weeks ago, and we're hanging out, working on this song, and Angela, you're amazing at celebrating. And there are these moments where you would like, I would be nervous about like spitting a verse or like throwing something out there, and you would just be like, but that last verse was crazy. Like you would just be like celebrating stuff, and then low key crazy. On the inside I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna try the other way, you know, like it like it would like unlock this thing of like, okay, well, I'm gonna try this new thing. Like I can step out a little bit further because this other thing is being celebrated so well. It's giving me permission to try something new. And so just to bring it back to the CCM thing, I think we've seen a lack of creativity, and I wonder if some of those people are maybe not experiencing people celebrating when these new ideas come out and the new things that they try. So then they just stop stepping out.
Yep.
And then before you know it, you're just doing the same thing everybody else is doing. And we don't innovate. We don't try new things. And so I do think that there's something about the trust that celebration creates that allows us to actually move into more creativity when there's a healthy culture of celebration somewhere. But
that's so
just processing that while you were saying that.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah. It's because it's not fun. Simply.
Right.
I think about, when I'm thinking about that question, like what do environments look like when there's no celebration? Yeah. And they're boring.
Yeah.
I feel like a workhorse when there's no celebration, when we're not cracking jokes. I feel awkward, like I can't be my full self because this isn't a safe space.
Yes.
Because there's no friendship or, like you said, trust.
Yes.
But in spaces where it is fun, there's like this childlikeness that comes out when a community stewards celebration.
Yes.
Definitely.
And even the Lord said that's how we come to him, is through childlike faith.
Yep.
And I find too, children are just going with the flow. They're just with it. They'll do the funniest things. My son, oh my gosh, he started the other day. He had, we ate some guacamole, and then he had a chopstick, and he just started dipping it and painting on his shirt with a guacamole.
Wow.
Very funny in the moment.
Picasso.
Prodigy in making. And as he was doing that, I just thought, he's having fun. He's in a safe space.
Yes.
He knows that I'm not going to rip away the thing saying, oh, you're not supposed to do that. I did later in a safer way. I didn't yell at him. But it wasn't this reactionary thing, because our house is a safe space where he can be himself. He can be fully himself, and he knows that I'm not gonna crack out the whip because there's too much fun going on. And so because of that, he's so safe, because he feels the trust in our home, and he can do whatever he wants. Not everything, there's boundaries. There's boundaries. But because it's fun, he is creative. And I pray that goes even more as he grows up. He's only 2 years old. But stewarding that environment, how are we stewarding environments? Are we making them fun? Are we allowing people to be their authentic selves? Or are we a music factory and we just crank out the tunes for the church to sing? Or for even I remember I watched this documentary on glass blowing, and there's a difference between the people there's a stark difference, because they have glass blowing factories where they have to make commercial goods to produce like glassware and plates and, things that they would sell at like Walmart or something. And there's no fun in it at all, because they have a specific parameter that they have to meet. Versus the freedom to fully express myself in it, where they can weave in these other colors. And there's a stark difference between those people that I've seen, where they come into this factory where they can do whatever they want. This is a competition and all these things, but they can fully express themselves, and they just talk about the joy. And they might not be realizing it, but it's where you feel safe, and there's there's feedback for some of the things that we do, but there's freedom to just be yourself. Safe.
I think about it too in because there are creative outlets that are your job. So specifically, I'm a video editor, and it's there are actual tasks that I just have to do, but there is a beauty of that childlikeness to keep and hone into when you are somebody that has to produce so much that you want to keep that childlikeness. One of my favorite things to do is one of my favorite things to experience is when I see little kids in the grocery store singing and dancing just in public. Because it's one of my, and I'll be like, you better get it. Go ahead. And just celebrating that childlikeness, that they don't care where they are at. They're just singing and dancing. When I was younger, I think it might have been a cultural thing, but my mom would be like, don't do that in public. I'll just be singing. I'm like, nah, nah, nah. And but I remember one of the last times that I stopped doing that, because it wasn't cultivated. And I mean, again, I think it was cultural. There are things that I'm like, okay. But I remember it's something that freedom to be in public and just be free. And so when we take that into our workspaces and our work environment, that same mindset, we can almost lose the freedom of being childlike when we are creating. And so there's something to stewarding and fostering celebration in those spaces, even if like what you do is like you're a songwriter and you have to be in the session with somebody and you have to get these songs out. Like you don't want to just create an A-B and then pop it out. You want, okay, God, how do I take this value and put it into my day-to-day life? Whether it is like, I was telling Pastor Jasmine, as far as producing, she was asking me if I want to be a producer, and I was like, I don't really feel called to it, but I know God is breathing on it right now, so I'm trying to steward it. And when you said that story, it just blew my mind of like how many people just need to be unlocked in that aspect. Like maybe I'm not going to be the best producer ever, but maybe my job is to sit in this place to help bring out some of those ideas that wouldn't naturally. Maybe that's what it is, and I just got that revelation right now, like oh wow, I didn't know it did that.
Oh yeah.
You know?
I think Angela, she and I, us, Angela. Together. For the listeners, I'm talking about Angela and I, but I'm also talking to Angela, so it's awkward. Anyway, we made a song a couple years ago called Humpty Dumpty, and that song, honestly, is probably one of the most vulnerable songs up to that point that I'd ever made. Not because of the content, but because of the type of song that it was. Like to this day, I still feel the awkwardness of it, low-key. Like if they play it at a wedding or something, and all the kids are like, "You guys sing it." We're like, "There's not a lot of words. Like we're just dancing, you know." Like and that's what's made it vulnerable. Is that most of the song, I'm doing this weird like Kirk Franklin.
What's the song like?
Ad-libs, you know?
Which verse?
I don't remember. Which part?
The thing is, it's like this. All right, now that's it. That's all we got, you know? It's just a couple lines. But like, I don't know if I would have stepped into that type of creative realm or that type of creative space unless we were doing it together and just having a blast doing it. Like we were just having fun, you know, in my old apartment, just going crazy, you know.
Use everything that you can to make a sound.
Like we made the beat with like spoons and plates and keys and all kinds of stuff, but we were just having fun. And I think I love that you said that, Vanessa, because I think for me, it's easy for me to think about celebration as like compliments. It's like saying nice things about people. And that's part of it. But like it's another big element of it is having fun. Like just having a good time. That's part of this value. And I can think of, just to come back to your producer thing, like so many atmospheres that I've been in with other producers where I wasn't having fun. And we made songs. Cool stuff happened. But I enjoyed doing it with you so much more because of how much fun we get to have together. You know, and there's so much more creativity and stuff that comes. So anyway.
Little celebration for you.
Hey,
just want to celebrate
there it
Angela.
is. Wow. It is. You see what I did there?
Really leaning into this. Love
it's
it.
Inception.
Celebration in celebration.
Exactly.
I love that. Yeah, I'm thinking too, even just back to like, why, if, again, God is the God of celebration, like how much in the Jewish culture he had celebration. I mean, you know how many feasts
real
there are?
The they ate.
And they go hard.
Dude.
They party.
Weeks at a time.
Weeks at a time, days at a time. The preparation to celebration is a big thing on God's heart. And again, I love doing this in context of like, if God is doing it, how much more should I probably lean into this? You know, if God it loves to have feast and talks about joy and being filled, like being merry, being like drink and eat and all of these things. It's like, how much more should we be implementing it in our day-to-day lives as we're being creative, as we're walking with people, because he is the God of celebration. And I think there's something in that like really helps dismantle maybe just some of the what is it called? The regular day-to-day stuff. Like you can just get lost. The mundane. That's the word. The mundane of day-to-day life. But then you find joy almost in everything. It's like you're leading in like, okay, I'm joyful that I get to come into this place. I celebrate you, Lord, that you gave me this job, this career, this whatever it is, these people that I lead, because we know that our day-to-day lives, there are things. Life happens. you know, there's trials, there's things, but it's like we can find a reason to rejoice always, you know, because God is a God of celebration. So
I love that you say that, because it's a heart posture. Like, if you're in these places where you do have to produce something and there's a certain parameter that this is how it's supposed to be met, how can you, I think we have to ask ourselves in those environments, because there's seasons where we have to enter that, where I have this deadline and there's a thing, this project that I have to complete. Have to ask myself, have I invited the Lord into it? And if this environment doesn't feel conducive to creativity being birthed or whatever it may be, how can I steward that? Because likely if we're recognizing it, God's asking us to steward it. That's something that we say often. I think it's with health, leaders go first. So if this environment isn't safe, it's clearly not healthy. So how can I start to bring some health into it so that it becomes a safe place where we can have joy even in... Because just because you have certain parameters or things that you have to meet doesn't mean that it can't be fun and it can't be joyful. So it is really, it boils down to a heart posture. And I mean, you really get that from the Lord. But it starts even in simple ways, like starting friendships and having fun with the people that you work with. One thing that I always try to take into the people that I lead is, one, being fully authentic. So like this morning, and I went shopping for a shirt last night, and they forgot the security tag on my shirt. And so this morning I'm sitting there, I'm looking at videos, like, how do I get this tag off? And I got it off. I'm wearing it. But then I come into my meeting, and I could have, and these students that I lead for SLS, for our spiritual leadership school, and I'm coming in and I'm just having fun. So I'm telling them all the stories, and then I'm joking like, man, I tell you guys everything because they're people and it's fun. We could easily make it this really restrictive environment where, okay, I'm coming in to lead this class or lead this oversight meeting, or take it into, you know, oh, we're having this feedback session on this song or whatever the creative expression is, where it normally would be a serious environment. How can I show up and steward that safe place? How can I steward friendship and joy? And all of that will breed celebration. All of it will.
I wonder if you sparked this thought. I mean, saying that, like, I wonder if there are people who struggle with celebration, especially Christians, because they don't actually believe God is fun.
Sure.
Like, if part of that serious disposition that you're talking about, like sometimes we just take ourselves too seriously in meetings or whatever it is. Like, I love that you're talking about in your meeting, you're having fun and just being authentic and telling them the real life stories and just this stuff. Like, but there's so many people who that's not their reality. Even as Christians in ministry and it's just very like intense. And I'm like, I wonder if people actually believe God is like that. If that informs that disposition in our Christian walk of like, we have to have it together or something. Because the truth is, if you religion, because if you don't know that facet of God, then like you have no permission or right to be happy and celebrate yourself if you don't believe that that's who he is, and knowing that he's inside of you, you know. Anyway, I was just like, I wonder if that's part of it for some people.
I really love The Chosen for this particular reason. They display, for some of y'all don't. You still ain't seen it. You still ain't seen it. That's episodes. Crazy to me. Which couple? The first two?
I did not ask for all this judgment publicly.
If I celebrate it more,
I can't say don't judge me because you're allowed to biblically. But
okay, so in The Chosen,
why you look at me?
Have y'all seen it?
I've seen 4 episodes.
Oh, 4 episodes. She's looking at her too.
I'm looking at y'all.
Okay, actually, first season. So the woman at the well.
Okay, no. That's right. But one of the things I love is that like they portray a human characteristic of Jesus being funny.
Yes.
You know, and I'm just like, He would probably joke like that. He probably would have been at the
Vanessa said yes, like she saw all the episodes.
The first season was 8 episodes, I think. So I had some investment.
Yeah, there was some investment.
8 times 45. How many minutes is that?
Hey, that's true.
All right.
You put some
I don't know if I've seen that facet of Jesus in the show yet. In the
Gotta
first
watch a
2
couple more
episodes.
episodes. You know, it's pretty
In
serious.
spirit, I agree. The Lord is
but-
telling me.
But they're just beautiful. Like it almost made me like, no, it didn't almost make me. It made me want to run to the Bible, read it, and then and put that characteristic of like, oh my gosh, what if you did say this joke, you know, or what if you were funny at the wedding?
Or what if that phrase was actually
this way.
different than I thought it was?
You know, when he says, "Woman, it is not my time." What if he was just being funny with his mom? It's not my time. It's not my time.
Yeah.
You know, but I got you. You know, like it makes it like, oh Jesus, you probably you were funny.
Man,
You know?
I can't think of any scripture that's like a Jesus moment in scripture or whatever where I've like thought about it as him joking.
Yeah.
Like I can't.
What if he was like, "You have little faith"? What if he was just like, "Oh, you know,
You have little faith."
Like we're looking at it like he's like, "Oh my gosh, you have little
that's
faith."
so funny.
This like holy reverent. You know what's wild?
Wow.
That just dropped in my mind. The scripture that God is a friend to those who fear him. Isn't that like wild? That he is a friend to those who fear him.
Yes.
That is, I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. I think I have to take that to the Lord. We should all take that to the Lord.
No,
but that's
absolutely.
wild. Like that he comes in closer as friend to those who have a fear of him, those who have. And so almost if you don't view that the Lord is a friend or that he's joyful, you have a perverted fear of the Lord.
Sure.
It's not the fear of the Lord. It's the spirit of fear.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good thought.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is a thought.
Never thought about that.
Yeah, I think there's so much identity wrapped up in just this one value of just, is knowing the character of God as one who created humor, created fun,
Man, that's so interesting.
and how there's no serious fruit of the Spirit, but there's joy, you know, like, so what happens to us when we think,
Man,
okay, celebration
that's
isn't
so
a weapon
The
to the enemy,
serious fruit.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that it can be, it's a character thing. It's a heart thing. It's, I think that a lot of times in the creative space, it can be immaturity, it can be pride, but I think it's just identity. Like we just don't know. Like if we truly knew that the Lord was for us, that he celebrates us. I mean, just the question we were thinking about earlier, when was the last time you sat with the Lord and said, what do you celebrate about me? What do you think about me? You know, like how many times do we do that, you know, in reality? And he would, the beautiful thing is he would say something, you know, like he would actually talk to you about that. But the question is, do we believe it? Do we carry that? And then being the mouthpiece of the Lord? Because a lot of it, you're celebrating people, but it could be prophecy. It could be like, this is what I see in you. You might not see it, you know? And I also love celebration because it's not only about wins. Like I remember, man, there's been moments, a part of worship team, a part of just life in general, where you mess up, you don't do it right, you miss it, and someone celebrates you. And you're like, whoa, hold on a second. But it gives you hope to continue to do it. Like, okay, I missed it, but like now I see that there's, you know, I can go further. I can do it differently. So it's not just about making someone feel great, not just about puffing anyone up. In the right heart, it's strengthening the other person, and it strengthens you too.
Good. How do you guys navigate this? Because there's probably many listeners who, when they are celebrated, it could lead into this almost false humility, or like, I don't want to receive that. How do you guys are on the worship team, you know, so like I'm sure on Sundays people come up to you and be like, you just sang so good, like, you know, or like have said some things where it's like, I just love you, and when you're not there, you know, like how have you guys like navigated receiving celebrations, but still rejecting maybe the false humility or the pride that could come from receiving celebration? Like, what does that look like for you guys?
I remember hearing a quote from Bill Johnson one time, and it was something like this. He was talking about somebody was getting celebrated, giving a compliment or something, and they were just like, no, it was all God, man. Like, God did it. You know, he was, and Bill Johnson was like, well, it wasn't that good.
No, for real though. Like if it was all God, it'd be a lot better than this.
Yeah, he said it took me out. And it's honestly just shifted so much in my perspective
That's wild.
in this space as a worship leader and being in this space all the time. And you're right. There's always people coming up and saying nice things, celebrating things. And I remember going to one of my mentors years ago and being like so conflicted of like, what do I do when people compliment me and they seems like they're just doing them like going overboard, saying so many nice things. And they were like, well, just really simply put, just say thank you.
Yeah.
And then go home and give it all to him.
Yeah.
Give it to the Lord. And I was just like, that's so simple. Is that okay? You know?
Yes.
And I just continuing to process it. And I realized, man, God is not afraid of his sons and daughters receiving celebration. Any good father, if you have an awesome father in the store or whatever with his kid, and somebody walks, maybe the kid that you were talking about that's singing and whatever, put on a whole performance or whatever, and somebody walks up and tells that kid, man, your voice is awesome. Like, you got some crazy moves, dude. Like, you're killing it. Like, I love how bold you are. Like most awesome fathers are gonna look and listen to that compliment of their child and just be beaming. Because that's their boy. That's their daughter. That's their child, and they're proud and they're happy. I love Brendan is just like yes, because he's an awesome dad and he knows that feeling, you know. And so it's like, but we think that God's like mad or something of like, somebody's like, good job, and he's like waiting like, are you gonna let them say that to you? Because I'm the one that did it. I gave you the ability, you know, like we think he's just like insecure or something. But he loves us. Like he loves us. He gave us the gifts. He knows we're his son, his daughter, you know. And so I think it's for me, I've just learned personally, I just say thank you most of the time, or that's so kind. I just receive it. And then I take it at home or my daily encounter. I say, Lord, you know that's you. Like, look at what you've done. Like, you're so amazing. And I just give him all of it. But I think it is a lot of times false humility. I wholeheartedly believe that. That a lot of times when we try to deny those moments, we are inwardly receiving it for ourselves and externally trying to make them think that we are not impressed by it. That's usually what's happening. And so I've just learned, thank you, and I'm just gonna go take it to him. You know, I don't want to play the game of the lie of receiving it, because then what you end up actually doing is, on an outward form, you make people think you didn't receive it, and you might fool yourself to think you didn't, but it is actually puffing you up. You know. And so I don't want to play the game with it. I'm not saying that every time somebody says it was God that they need to be rebuked or anything weird. I just think we have to be authentic and don't be weird. With celebration. Anyway, that's my soapbox.
One other thought that came to mind as you were talking to is the importance of just learning to celebrate yourself. I think that's like almost a discipline that maybe you have. I mean, if David had to strengthen himself in the Lord, you know?
That's true.
And you get people like the Apostle Paul, who's like, I speak in tongues more than all y'all. You know, like there's a humility there, but it's like I do this because I do this to myself. You know, and so
Moses, I'm the most humble.
I'm the most humble. I'm the most humble. Like, he can say that. You know,
that's true.
I can't say that. He can say that. But I mean, I think that there's so much like, if we could get a hold of even just celebrating the little wins that we see, because I think we're so hard on ourselves a lot of the time, especially as creative people, that we're so good at just shutting the door on ideas and shutting, you know, throwing things in the trash that could have been something beautiful because we chose not to actually celebrate what God is doing in us. You know?
I was in a meeting. I'm sorry.
Nope, go for it.
I was in a meeting yesterday and somebody did that and it was awesome. It was so funny. They gave an idea. They gave somebody an idea and everybody in the room was like, yes, that's an awesome idea. I think we were in the same meeting. And everybody was like, this is so awesome or whatever. And the person was like, yeah, that was a great idea. It was like pure and hilarious, but it was just like pure. It was like, like he knows that was a good idea, and he's not gonna act like, no, guys, I don't know. It's healthy.
Yeah, I find that when we act weird about it, then we're actually stifling that person from celebrating again.
Yeah.
Because they think like, I'm going to be a symptom to your pride if I celebrate you.
Yeah.
So it's like we have to be intentional that we steward that well when people do come up to celebrate us. And that's wild.
Yeah.
I actually specifically remember going back to asking the Lord to celebrate you. That when I first joined the worship team, and I went through the audition process and we had our like little 12-week class. Whenever we did that, I had never actually asked the Lord ever in my life, what do you love about me?
Wow.
What do you think about me? I had never done that in my life. And to be totally honest with you, I didn't steward it well back then. But then later on, the Lord took me through that process of telling me, like, this is what happens when you sing. This is what happens in the Spirit. And this is what I love that you do this to me.
Yes.
And it becomes an image now so that every time I go into worship, that's what the Lord will replay in my mind.
Wow.
And it's beautiful. But again, it's that childlikeness. I remember whenever I was young and in dating and all the things, I would constantly ask all the boys, hey, do you like me? What do you think about me? And then I would judge him. What do you think? And then I would judge him if the text wasn't long enough. Like, you better have paragraphs.
Single boys, listen up.
Well, one boy heard.
One boy got it.
He never texted, actually. I had to record it. No, I'm just kidding.
She's married.
But it's funny because it's that immaturity. But like, what if we just got over ourselves and got a little, quote unquote, immature, but just fun with the Lord? And Lord, can you just tell me what you think about me? You created me this way. Why did you make my nose this way? Why did you make my face this way? Why did you make my voice sound this way? And I know we all cringe when we hear ourselves on recordings, right? But the Lord didn't cringe. He created us to be heard that way. So it's beautiful. I think we just got to get over ourselves sometimes. It's celebration.
It's really good.
That's so good. We're wrapping up, but I want to ask you guys if there's just one thing that you could leave with somebody who wants to start putting or implementing this value into their life, into their creativity. How would you tell them to start? Like, what's one practical tip that they can take away to just start?
I feel like in preparing for today, as I was praying, the Lord reminded me, I think it's a part where we say little wins create a big victory. And as I was asking the Lord, I was like, hey, what determines a victory? And I think we say it in AXL. We say it around just Mercy Culture Church in general. We'll say in Ephesians 5, carefully determine what pleases the Lord. Find out what pleases the Lord. And that should be our measure of success. All throughout Scripture, Jesus is the author. He's the finisher. He's the champion. Jesus is the prize. And so when we're thinking about little wins, we have to know what our victory is. What's our success? And so I think taking that into your account, or like whatever your creative expression is, whatever way that you connect with the Lord in specifically creativity, having Him tell you what pleases me through this thing, this gift that I gave you. And then use that as your measure of success, because then you're going to steward the little wins so much better.
I would say just don't overcomplicate it. Like, celebration should be fun. It should be easy. It should be lighthearted. I think there's big celebrations that you can really think about and plan through and map out. But I would say just be really intentional with the things in front of you. If it's a friend, if it's your spouse, if it's your kid, whatever, and just look for ways to celebrate. Like, just be intentional with it and just start there. And just like, don't overcomplicate it. It has to be this crazy, huge celebration. Like, you got up today, made your bed. I celebrate, like there's little wins, right? That create a big victory, as we say. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, and I think kind of piggybacking off of that, I would say just be intentional. If it's something that you say you want to grow in, then you can't expect it to just start happening.
Right. You have to do it
magically or something.
I'm
going to grow in celebration, and you just keep doing everything that you always do the same way. It's not passive. It has to be intentional. And so I would say find an intentional way to start recording little wins. And so what I do, because it's something that I want to grow in, I'll write. Sometimes I'll just open my notes like for my husband especially, like I'll open my notes and write down things I'm thankful for today.
Wow.
And I'll just start writing down little like things that he did that that I would probably normally just be like, no, it's cool and keep moving, you know, that like need to be celebrated, you know. But if I don't stop and write down that type of list, and then so that I can remember to text that thing and have language for something that I think was beautiful and worthy of celebration, then I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
But it has to be an intentional effort.
So
the Bible talks about, I forget where it is, meditate on these things. One of the things in the list of things that Paul tells us to meditate on, it's either Paul or Timothy, but that they tell us to meditate on is things that are worthy of celebration. That's one of the things that we as Christians are supposed to be meditating on regularly. And so again, that intentionality of just, we have to like meditate, think often about things that are worthy of celebration, but my mind doesn't immediately find them to be able to meditate on them. So I have to write them down so I can think about it often, you know? So I would say practically be intentional about it.
That's so good. If I had to say something,
what would you say, Angela?
I think I want to probably just go off of something that you said about creating safe spaces, or like a space, like an atmosphere. If you recognize that there's an atmosphere that is lacking in trust and safety, and that's what you want to cultivate, I would just, again, everything that you guys are saying, don't make it complicated. Be intentional, and if you are put in that space to bring that, you know. So I would just say, be intentional about creating those atmospheres where you see there's a lack of celebration, so that you can be a safe space, so that people can foster creativity or relationship and whatnot. So, well, I celebrate you guys.
You too, Angela.
Thanks, Ange.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was fun.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, you know, if you're not having fun. You guys see the board? Hey, let's put it on the board.
Put this podcast
on the board. Let's go. Love you guys. Until next time, we're out.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the AXL Podcast. Make sure to subscribe and stay up to date with everything that's going on. For more information, visit axlcreativeco.com or follow us on all socials at AXL Creative Co. We'll see you next time.